Okay, so thank you everyone for joining our Jungle Sisters Women's webinar. Today I'm really excited to introduce you to Dr. Karmele Sanchez, who is the Executive Director of International Animal Rescue in Indonesia. Karmele is our honoured guest, and she's going to talk to us today about how she became involved as one of the leaders in orangutan conservation, slow loris and macaque conservation throughout Indonesia. So I'm going to hand over to you, Karmele, but thank you very much for joining us and sharing your time to the girls. I think they're going to get a lot out of it.
Hi, Jess, and everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's the first time that I do something like this, so I don't know how it's going to go, but hopefully it will be all right. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for organizing this. So yeah, I have a little presentation. It's not very fancy or anything, but I just wanted to give some images of what I'm going to be talking about. Usually when I give a presentation, I only talk about the programs and, you know, our successes with the orangutans or like the problems and stuff like that. Usually they are for fundraising presentations and stuff like that. Today, I just want to tell you a little bit more about my personal experience with the idea that maybe you guys can get some inspiration for your careers, your lives. So we start with presenting my family. I am the youngest of a family of 4. I am the only one in the family who left home. All my brothers and sisters, 1 sister and 2 brothers are still living near my parents' home. So here I am, the youngest of the family, was the most brave to leave home and go far away. I also, since I was a small child, I always was interested in nature. I loved to go to the forest. I used to spend more time with my brother rather than my sister. I was a little bit like a tomboy. I always had this haircut, the same as my brother. I played football. I loved to go to see birds in the forest and yeah, just in contact with nature. I loved animals from forever, you know. I always remember to have loved animals. Particularly when I was young, there was a species of animal which is a lynx, and it's a species that is only found in Spain and Portugal. So it's the Iberian lynx, and it's a beautiful animal, and it's quite endangered. And somehow I always liked that animal, and I used to play. My mother says that I used to play with kind of like kind of teddy bear that looked like a cat. And I always, since I was already, you know, pretty small, I was already like taking care of this cat and treating it like if I was a doctor, right? So I think even since the very beginning, I had very clear that I wanted to be a doctor for animals. And the other species that I liked a lot is always been the dogs, even until now. I think dogs are great and they are my favorite species. So, you know, I was not always just focused on primates. This is something that came up a lot later in my life. But I'm just an animal lover. I just love all animals. And I like domestic animals because you can, you know, kind of have a much more close relationship. But I love wildlife as well. I love to see the freedom of wildlife when they actually have the freedom. So then I became a vet. This was already in high school. I already knew that I wanted to be a vet. I had it so clear. I just went straight into vet school, and after quite many years and a lot of effort, I became a vet. I graduated as a vet in 2002. And again, even when I was at the school, at the university, I knew that I didn't want to just become a normal, usual vet working with domestic animals, working in a small practice. I don't know, I always thought that this was not my thing. My thing was about saving animals. I think maybe the usual job as a vet is more maybe focus on business. You treat animals, but you make money, and you have to make more money so your business goes well. I just couldn't get that, feeling. For me, saving animals is a way of life rather than a job. So when I was studying at the university, I was already started to get interested in helping wildlife, more because my idea was that, wildlife need to be helped, even though you don't get guaranteed that you get paid for it. But I don't know, I thought that as a vet, we had a responsibility to help all animals, not the animals that when they are treated, we get paid. So just maybe about my third year of school, I already started doing some work with wildlife. And in fact, in my last year of university, I once found an animal that had been run over by a car. It was some kind of wildcat, and I found it, and it was really injured. And so I took it with me. I took it home. I put it in a box, and I took it to my class, I took it to the clinic of my university, which it was quite far away from my home. It was maybe about 5 hours by train. And I took it there. I took it to my professors, and I said, well, I found this animal and I would like to help it. And they looked at me a bit like, what are you talking about? But I was very determined, because I thought, I knew that in our clinic or in our university, we had a kind of ethical obligation to treat any animal that needed help. So I knew that they couldn't refuse to help me to help the animal. So they finally accepted, and they gave me some, room, and they helped me out to get some x-rays and to do some blood work, and, to get some medication. And I was treating this animal for 3 weeks, every day, going to university, giving some injections, until I finally managed to get him back on track, and this animal got cured. So I put it back in a box. I took it all the way back to where I found it, 5 hours by train, and I released it. And that was the first time that I helped an animal, a wild animal, who was a free animal, and I treated it, and I returned it back to the wild. And, it was maybe just a random experience, but it really marked me, because since then I was very convinced that what I wanted to do as a vet, it was that, treat wildlife and release them back to the wild. So then I finished my university studies. I went to Venezuela, in South America, and I started working in wildlife rescue centers. There, I also had my first experience with primates. So until then, I had never even thought of primates, because I had never seen a primate, a non-human primate before. But then in Venezuela, I had the opportunity to work with different species of primates. One of them was the capuchin monkey, which they are like extremely intelligent. They are really cute, and I really like them. And that was my first experience with primates, and I must say that again, that was one of the experiences that kind of led me in the direction that I've gone to after that, and ending up here. Because after that, then I decided to just get more experience in primates. So I went to work for a wildlife, it was a primate center in Holland. The name is Stichting Up. And I went there to volunteer first, but then I got also some kind of paid practice period, like a stagiaire. And after that, I also got a job. So I spent there like over a year, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about primates. I learned a lot about rehabilitation, about quarantine, about, things that I hadn't learned at the university. But mostly also I, for the first time, worked with macaques. And for me, that was a new species again. I had never had experience with macaques. And I loved them. I thought that macaques were really clever. They were very smart. I really liked their social structure. And yeah, so I just thought, macaques are really great animals. So after Holland, after the Netherlands, I decided to, it was really good. I liked the job there, but it was not fulfilling enough because, as I had said before, I was looking for something where I could work with animals in their habitat, where I could return animals back to the wild. So then it came up, the possibility to go and volunteer in a wildlife rescue center in Indonesia. So that was the first time that I decided to travel to Indonesia back in 2003. I came to Indonesia and I worked in several places, all in different wildlife rescue centers, starting in East Java and then in Jakarta as well, and then in Sukabumi, which is like West Java, and all over the place. And so then I started getting the experience to really work with wildlife. But one of the things that really shocked me is that in Indonesia, I could see these macaques, the macaques that I liked so much, that I had worked with in Holland. I could see them in Indonesia all over the place, in small cages, in chains, and I was quite horrified. I just came to Indonesia the first time as a normal volunteer. I came for 3 months. I never had any idea in my mind that I will stay here for any longer. The plan was like, okay, I stay here 3 months. When it's finished, go back, continue my life. But then, after seeing the situation of primates here, macaques, and slow lorises as well, and orangutans, and all of the other animals that I had experience working with here, I just couldn't turn my eyes away. So I got kind of like trapped. I didn't plan to stay here, but I had to. I had the feeling that I had the responsibility to help animals here. So I couldn't leave anymore. So this is how I ended up here. It was back in 2003. So then my first project, or my first dream, it was together with another colleague of mine here in Indonesia. She was Dutch. It was to help macaques. Macaques that were like so neglected everywhere, and people didn't care and were considered a pest. So we started looking for funding for a center for macaques. So this is how we ended up setting up a center for macaques. It was first only macaques, but also the other species that we looked at, it was slow lorises, because the same, slow lorises seemed to be species that nobody cared about. They were being sold on the streets all over the place. In the picture, that unfortunately they are overlaid, so you cannot see it well. But in the picture there, the slow loris is having his teeth cut with a nail cutter. And this is something that we witnessed ourselves in the markets here in Indonesia, in Jakarta. People will take these slow lorises from the wild, cut their teeth, and then sell them for, like the wildlife pet trade. And the small little macaques that they will be just torn apart from their families and taken to small markets all over the place as well, and put in cramped cages and sell them for profit. While, people just buy them, keep them for a while. Sometimes they die, they don't. Nobody really cared about these animals. So that's why we started this center for the first center for macaques and slow lorises. But also I had the experience when I came here for the first time to go to Kalimantan just to help. I was asked by another organization to help out because they were having a big influx of orangutans at the center. It was when the palm oil industry started to kick off in Indonesia back in 2005. There were so many rescues of orangutans that this center needed to ask for help. So they asked me to spend some time at their center and help out. And that was my first experience with orangutans. Which again, it really changed my life, because after seeing what it was happening in Borneo, after seeing what it was happening to the orangutans and to all wildlife, I realized that, I had to do something about it. So then it became another kind of like commitment for me. I was already helping the macaques and the slow lorises, and now I also wanted to help the orangutans in Kalimantan. So this is how International Animal Rescue Indonesia started, helping these 4 species, the 2 species of macaques, the common macaques, the pigtail and long-tail macaque, as well as the orangutans and the slow lorises. And this is a picture of our center in Bogor, in Java, where we have the slow lorises and the macaques. And it has been running since 2006. But then I had to go back to Kalimantan because, as I said, I had the idea in my mind that at some point I had to help orangutans too. So this was a few years later, 2009, I had to go to Pontianak, which is the capital city of West Kalimantan. And I was, for the first time, I met an orangutan called Jojo, who is, really, really something that changed my life again. I met Jojo. He was being kept in this filthy environment. He was chained up to a pole. The chain was in his ankle, and actually the chain was growing up in the skin and the flex because the orangutan might have been there for many years. He was maybe over 9-10 years old. He was quite tiny and quite malnourished, had signs of rickets. And basically he was living over a sewage. It was really dirty, looked pretty sick, not very healthy. And when I went to Jojo's house, I was helping another organization again who had asked for my help to go and treat Jojo and give some medication for worms and stuff like that. But then I was horrified because I was, I went to see Jojo and I saw him there chained up, and I was asked to give medication. But, how could I leave an orangutan like that, living like that? So I went back to my friend, my colleague, and I said, look, we have to evacuate this orangutan, take it somewhere to rescue center. And then he said, well, that's the problem. There is no rescue center for orangutans in West Kalimantan. The nearest center is in central Kalimantan, is far away. And the police department, the forestry police department doesn't allow us to take animals from one province to the other. So that day, I gave Jojo some deworming medication. I removed the chain from one of his ankles, and I had to put back the chain on the other ankle. And that was very traumatizing experience. I had to leave Jojo there. And basically that was, since that moment, I became focused on helping orangutans in West Kalimantan. So the Center for Macaques and Slow Lorises was already running. I had a really good team that was taking care of the center in Bogor. And then I started to really spend my time. I went to the UK to talk to my team in the UK to get funding for a rescue center for orangutans in West Kalimantan. And this is how everything happened. We left Jojo there, and since then I started working really hard to find a center for orangutans in West Kalimantan. And it took about a year when we finally managed to get all the permits, get the land, and get infrastructure and, well, get everything to set up the center we have in West Kalimantan, in Ketapang now. And Jojo was our first rescue. It was at the end of 2009. So I met Jojo maybe around April, May 2009, and in December we rescued Jojo and we took him to our center, and he's still there with us. I will show you later a picture of how he looks now. But then the whole thing started, once we set up the center in West Kalimantan. It's been really pretty much non-stop. We have been rescuing orangutans all over the place. We have rescued nearly 200 orangutans in the last year, since 2009. With the rescues, we have also a large number of orangutans in rehabilitation. And this is Jojo now. This is how Jojo, after the years, came up to be a really handsome boy, quite healthy. He went through a really rough time. He was very sick for some time. I think all these many years of living in such a healthy condition, he had a really severe infection in his lungs. It took us months to treat him, but now he looks like that. He's a really handsome boy. He lives in a cage. That is his kind of, well, his life now is a cage. He's never going to be able to be released, unfortunately, because he's already too grown up, because he couldn't be able to learn how to survive in the wild anymore, and because he could potentially be harmful for people if we released him in an area where he could access a village. So he will be with us for the rest of his life. But we are happy to see him that he's so much better, and I'm sure that he remembers what we did for him. But yeah, I mean, there is Jojo, and there are so many other orangutans that we have helped this far, and so many more that need help. This is a picture of one of the wild orangutans that we rescued during the fires. You know, it's just that when you make the commitment to help, it's very difficult how you are going to go away from that commitment when, you know, like you only see more and more orangutans in need, and the whole forest. And I think one of the things that have made me more passionate in the last couple of years is like we started just rescuing individuals and, you know, just helping some individual animals. But now we are getting to the point that we can actually save the forest. And the reason why it makes me really passionate is because I know that protecting the forest is the only way to protect all the animals on it, not only the orangutans, but also the macaques, the slow lorises, the frogs, the insects, the birds, and everything else. So while we continue doing the rescue of animals and we continue the rehabilitation, I really think that we need to pay more attention to the forest and try to avoid that the orangutans or any other animal has to be rescued in the first place. And, you know, this is a picture of all the baby orangutans that usually people find that they are very cute. But for me, it's just an image of the horrible situation that we are living now with all these orphan orangutans that have lost their mothers, have lost their forest, have lost their lives, and that we have to try to give them another chance. It will take us many years, it will take us a lot of effort and money, but we are going to try to give them another chance in life. But we should try to avoid more orangutans like these ones are taken away from the forest or taken apart from their mothers. And I wanted to finish with a picture of my team, because if I am proud of something, what I've done all these years is actually the team of people that are working along with me, that have been my support, my husband, of course, but all the rest of the people that have been loyal to me, to the organization, and to the animals. And I really thank them and I appreciate them, and I think nothing what we are doing now would be possible without them. So that's it.
Thanks, Karmele. That was really heartfelt. Oh. I'm going to open up for questions. A couple of girls here. Ladies, did you have any questions for Karmele? Karmele, we have Debbie who's online at the moment, and I know she's probably emailed you, but she's also been quite, as part of her journey, she's still looking at how she can get more involved, and especially from America. So she's very well connected in the zoo industry. She attends different conferences, and I know she's raised up to about $1,000 US just from a small crowdfunding that she put an appeal out to her friends and family for IAR. And I think she's going to go through Richard. I'm not sure how she's going to do it, to send you that money. Now, in terms of support, I think, you know, you've got so many different projects. What is the number one thing that people can do to help you and your efforts? Because it really is about supporting like-minded people and really trying to bring together the international community, not just in the same places, but in other areas, to really understand and recognize the work that you're doing, and what is that one thing that you need, that you want, in order for you to continue what you're doing?
We obviously need many things. We need a lot of things that probably people cannot do much to help. You know, we need better politicians, we need better policies, we need to, you know, persuade the companies to stop damaging the forest. But what people can do much more easily from their houses, their homes, from their countries, without having to, you know, move all the way here or anything like that, is help us with donations and funding. I mean, nothing of what we do can be done without money. And, you know, and a lot of the, you know, one of the limiting factors, because there are many limiting factors, one of them is money, is funding. If we had more funding, we could release more animals. If we had more funding, we could protect more forests. If we had more funding, we could get more, you know, employees and more infrastructure. And so it's, yeah, it's a question of how we can get the funds needed to do all this work and ensure that this will be ongoing for a long time, because this is not a one-time thing. We're talking about years of commitment to try to rehabilitate all these orangutans and to release them back to the wild, but also years of commitment of protecting the forest and helping the local community so that they don't have to live in the forest.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other questions, ladies? I have a question for you, Karmele. You know, it's a hard gig to really try and make a difference in Indonesia. You have to be really thick-skinned. What is the one quality that you perceive to be absolutely necessary for any person entering the conservation industry? With one thing that they must learn?
Well, I would think, and what I have experienced myself in the years that I have been here, one thing is the consistency. I think my life has changed so much. I am achieving so much more now after the years. Why? Because I know my way around, people know me and people. I understand the politics, I understand the culture, I understand the, you know, the dynamics. I know local people, you know, it's like, I think this knowledge, you cannot get it at the university, you cannot get it at a course, you just have to get it with experience. And I think in any country or any project, the consistency of staying somewhere for a long period of time, for long-term commitment, I think is crucial. And maybe, you know, everybody will have a limit of time. I think it is positive that people one day move on to a different thing. I think it's good for you, it's good for the project, it's good for the organization. You know, it's not a commitment forever for the rest of your life. But I think it's important to give a long-term commitment, because you can really make a difference in years. And that's something that you cannot get otherwise.
No, it isn't. No. Okay, I've got one more. So I have a question from Debbie. Does most of your support for IR come from the UK? Does much of it come from the US? And are you hoping to increase the places that you get support?
Yeah, so like the fundraising efforts in like kind of individual and individual fundraising is done mostly by our team in the UK, and their market is the UK and US. I mean, I think with the US, it's a big country with a lot of people. I think we are only like basically scratching the surface of it. I think there is a big market there that we have to try to tap into. But and the UK, I think, is still the main, the biggest market for us. I do think that there is a big possibility to expand and to really get funding from many other countries. You know, it's still so many other countries that are not even like, you know, like even touching. And from here, from Indonesia, we do have fundraising efforts, but it's mostly through proposals and through specific projects and funding applications, rather than just the overall fundraising efforts. Because we don't have a team here to do the fundraising. But I am really keen on developing a more, you know, developing the fundraising efforts here in the country, and first of all, start maybe, you know, trying to reach out more to Indonesians as well. In Indonesia, there are a lot of money. There are a lot of rich people. Middle class is growing. One of the most rapid growing middle classes in the world. And I think we need to also start trying to get the funding within the country and potentially in other countries around.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other questions, ladies, before we finish up? No? If there are questions, please feel free to send them to me and I can pass them on to Karmele. I can answer at another stage. But yeah, other than that, I think we might finish up the webinar. So Karmele, thank you so much for your time. Really greatly appreciated. And I hope you can join us for the retreat in April in Bali for 3 days. Yay! I really hope so. And that way these girls can come to meet you face to face and reflect on this presentation, and as we work through the program, look at different spaces that they can get more involved in with some of your work, and also yeah, by meeting you they'll be able to have that opportunity to ask you more in-depth questions. And other than that, I think I might sign off. So I'll keep you online for a minute. I'm going to take us off recording, Karmele, because I've got something to share with you while I've got you online. But girls, I thank you so much for joining. I'm going to put this up for people to download. So, and the girls have said thank you very much for your time as well.
Okay, yeah, thank you as well. Yes, you've done a good job organizing this, and hopefully, you know, it's been useful for you and the team.
Yeah, it definitely has. Okay. Yeah.